Oklahoma is a team that, has a similar-ish style, likes to, offensively at least, likes to get up and down, shoots lots of threes. Just what's a challenge? I know last time against Florida State you said track meet is good for you guys, but are you kind of expecting a similar, challenge with a team who plays a similar style of basketball?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're just such a hard matchup, one, because they can go in transition, they make 9 threes a game, and they are so big on the inside. And so where rebounding has been an issue, I think they're out-rebounding their opponents by 18 a game. So we have to fix that.
You said after the game that A&M outworked you guys. What do you do to try to fix that going forward?
Yeah, we watched the film. We talk about how hard Oklahoma plays and just raise the standard in practice today and tomorrow.
Do you think that second half at A&M can kind of be a warning going into this Oklahoma game of what happens if they take their foot off the gas?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've learned that lesson before, and we talked about that at halftime, that we've blown a 20-point lead before, and we need to have a good third quarter. We need to come out strong. We need to guard, and we didn't do that. So I do think we need to do a better job of in-game adjustments. So at Texas A&M, they played kind of a half-court game the first half, and then they were going in transition, and we didn't really make that adjustment, just making sure that we pick up on those patterns as players quicker.
Have you had that be an issue with past teams? How do you kind of approach a problem like that where it's almost more of like it's hard to identify mentally for each player, like why it's happening? You know what I mean? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, there's always a bad quarter. So some teams it's your first quarter, which is also terrible, and some teams it's your third quarter. It better not be our fourth quarter, but I've actually had a lot of our teams have it be our third quarter, and there's some reasons behind that. One, adjustments are being made, the other team comes out fresh, and then human nature kicks in, you see a big lead, and you don't feel like your possessions matter as much as they did at the start of the game, and just making sure, like, over time, they kind of figure that out.
That's kind of what I was going to ask. How do you get them to understand every possession still counts when you're up 20 points?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about 20 points is nothing. On either side, you're down 20, it doesn't mean anything. You're up 20, it doesn't mean anything. When you play this fast, you have this many possessions that it can be gone like that. And I just think the more they see it, the more they'll understand it.
Coach, how important is Tayia Cooper's mid-range game when you face a 2-3 zone like you did yesterday?
That's big, and she did a really good job of just getting to her spots against the zone. And after we got it moving a little bit too, so they were not forced, just in rhythm shots at the rim.
You said you weren't happy with a lot that went on in that game yesterday, but from a coach's perspective, what have you seen from opponents earlier in the season or just up until this point that you want your team to kind of emulate moving forward?
I just think that we need to be the hardest working team, and there's been some games, especially recently, where we haven't, especially for 4 quarters, so that's important. And then again, teams have just kind of put their heads down and gone to the rim in transition, and we haven't really had an answer for that, which is frustrating for me as a coach because that's all we do in practice. So it kind of comes back to, are we locked in? Are we focused? Are we taking it seriously? Because you have these moments again where, all right, Iowa on the road, then they don't score for the last 4 minutes. They kind of the same thing last night. All right, game's kind of tight. Last 3 minutes, now we're going to turn our defense on. Let's be consistent. Let's do that for 4 quarters.
Reese was asking you about Tayia. She's shooting 64%, I think, in the fourth quarter of games. What makes her kind of in a different mode in the fourth quarter? Last night that game got to 10. She scored 5 in a row, made it 15, kind of slammed the door. What is it about her mentality in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think she is hungry. I think she's confident. She puts the work in, so she knows she has the right to shoot those shots. We actually talked this morning about how to get her going quicker in the game, of how do we fix her first quarters. Because I think her first quarters could be like her fourth quarters if she wanted them to be, just making sure she has that aggressive mindset, no matter what the score is, no matter who the opponent is for 4 quarters.
Do you think she's too patient early in the game?
Yeah.
Not selfish enough, so to speak?
I do. And I think at the beginning of the year she was picking up some fouls early and then maybe playing a little bit hesitant to where she just kind of just needs to go.
We've talked about in the past how you don't call a lot of timeouts. Last night there was one in the third quarter. A&M opened 7-0 run, but it felt like it was more the timeouts because of that lack of effort on the play. Is that kind of your how would you describe your timeout philosophy? Is it because of effort that isn't acceptable?
Absolutely. I have something to say, and I can't wait. So I'm going to say it right now. So we called the timeout. And we had just talked at halftime, we need a good start. And right before they walked onto the floor, we said, we need to win the first 2 minutes of this half. The first 2 minutes are important. And they went out there and they gave up that run. I was not happy I could not get them out of the game soon enough.
Building off a question from earlier, what do you think maybe is the breakdown when opponents are really just driving downhill hard and like straight to the rack? Where do you think the breakdown is that you guys need to make that adjustment to slow that down?
Yeah, part of us, we like that. We want it to be a fast game. We want people to play at our pace. We just got to do a better job of protecting the rim and beating them to their spots.
When you have teams go on those runs, but then you also have weapons on your team like Tayia and Jewel who can just have immediate responses to those runs, how important is that?
That's big. I think when you can trust your offense and you share the ball and you have the right people taking the right shots and you play together as a team and you have so many weapons, you have so many people that can give you 10, 15 a night, it makes my job a lot easier.
Yesterday you said that Jewel Spear, any shot she wants, she can take. I know it was kind of a joke.
Yeah,
but
it was definitely a joke.
what makes a player earn that respect where you can even joke about that?
She's in the gym. She's such a good leader. She doesn't take bad, selfish shots. She's in the gym getting shots up. She creates shots for other people. You just trust her.
It's interesting because you have some really strong free throw shooters on your team. You have 4 shooting over 80%, 6 shooting over 70%, but there's games that crop up where the team as a whole shoots, the percentage isn't great. How do you approach a problem that just feels like the answer is practice more, but just is there any other way to fix that?
Practice more, and you got to look at your fatigue, I think, because yesterday both teams didn't shoot very well. And so it was a pace of game. Or was everyone a little bit tired, missing their foul shots? What's the issue for that? And so probably a combination of both.
They threw a lot of different defensive looks, kind of mixed up some different zone stuff. How pleased were you with the way offensively you handled things in the half court in terms of shot selection, ball movement, with all the multiple looks that they tried to give you defensively?
Yeah, I like the way we play on offense. We really tried not to pay attention to what the other team is in. We tried to just go. So that is good. I do think late in the second quarter we could have done a better job of identifying what defense they were in. So I would call a zone set, and then they would switch it to man, and we couldn't figure that out. But we adjusted pretty well in the second half.
You mentioned Oklahoma's post players off the top, but what will be the key to slowing them down on Sunday?
You got to guard the three-point line, and you got to guard them at the rim, and you can't give them a really nice mix. We can't foul them, give them and ones, let them kill us on the inside and the outside. We got to pressure them, got to make them uncomfortable, got to get stops.
I feel like I've noticed some of your players kind of adopting your mentality of, you guys won the game, but it wasn't good enough. The radio last night, Tayia, at one point said, my defense was terrible in the third quarter. Do you kind of see your team adapting to the mentality, and is that a good sign to see? Yeah,
I think so. I think it's a culture thing of sometimes we'll lose games and we play really well, and that's okay too. And it's more about performance than production at times, especially late in the year. If you're playing in a championship game and you played harder and you just didn't hit shots, it is what it is. So just making sure that they know that last night's performance was not the standard that we want to hit.
So many times this season you've mentioned they're not going to believe me until it happens, and they see it happen. So when you go to that timeout and you're like, I couldn't get to it fast enough, and it's the same message of we have to win these first few minutes, what do you think maybe changed with them when you reiterated that same message for the umpteenth time?
Yeah, they're doing a better job of just repeating it, getting ahead of it, making sure, again, we've talked about our third quarters, making sure that they're having basketball conversations in the locker room before I get in there, that they're focused. They're not, again, thinking the game is over at half. It's college basketball. It's never going to be over at half. So just making sure that they take the leadership on their own, and I get echoed is important.
How much are you looking forward to this challenge on Sunday? Obviously, this is a really good team, best team that you've played. As a competitor and your team, how much are you guys looking forward to putting your brand out there and see where you stack up with a team that comes in with the perception that they have?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for us. We've said it a lot. It's a good measuring stick, But this really is a good measuring stick to see, are we a top 10 team? Can we be in that conversation? Can we be in that mix? And if not, how far off are we? What do we need to fix in the next 2 months to maybe be a top 10 team? And Oklahoma has a real chance to be in the national championship conversation. So making sure that we put something on the floor that can compete with that.
What's your philosophy heading into games like this? Do you like to lean into it and try to get an extra energy boost out of your team going into it, or is it just kind of a game like usual, just try to go in as you would any other game?
I think it's kind of a mix. We need to fix our last game, so we should be fired up about fixing that. And then it is a big game for us, just making sure everyone is a little more locked in, taking it a little more seriously.
Where do you need to see Z Spearman affect the game?
I think Z could rebound more. Her and I talked on the bus last night. The more she offensive rebounds, the better she is, the better our team is. So instead of waiting and letting the offense come to her, she can go get more offensive rebounds, and she's going to be huge for us all year long of defending in the post. And she can really defend any position, but the bigger they get, she's really going to have to protect the rim for us. Thank you, guys.